Hello everybody and welcome back to the English shooting live stream. We finally did it. The new normal time of 8:30 on a Thursday. No interruptions, no deviations or different days. Let's see how many weeks we can keep that up. But a huge thank you for everyone joining and waiting. If you are new to the channel, if you're new to the live streams, then this is a chance to get involved, have your opinions heard, join in the conversation. We like tackling difficult, sensitive subjects from time to time, and certainly that's going to be one of those things today, but we can all be adult about it and we can all have hopefully a constructive conversation. So please do use that chat box and get involved, ask questions, not just about maybe the topics that we're going to be talking about tonight, but any general shooting questions that you may have or anything that may be on your mind. And please do raise any topics that you may also think others will want to discuss. Of course, don't forget, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. We do this every single week, normally, fingers crossed. And yeah, let's get into it. Oh yes, we've got Supermod on patrol, so keep it clean, again, keep it adult and keep it sensible. We can have a good conversation. It's not exactly the most let's say happy subject or positive subject, but the main subject, obviously, as the title of the live stream would say, is going to be around the current parading and hailing of certain gun bans, specifically the UK's banning of handguns back in 1997, as some sort of suggestion of what the USA should do in response to the recent Texas shooting. Now, I take quite a big exception to this, because obviously being within the UK, not being able to own handguns for sporting purposes, apart from in very, very unique circumstances, not being able to own semi-automatic full-bore rifles, again, except for very specific, unique circumstances, the damage that those bans did to the industry, I think the Cullen report estimated it in today's money, it was about £500 million that it cost to implement the handgun ban, and the damage to the industry, lost revenue and tax is going to be, again, running into the hundreds of millions, if not billions, over the period that people haven't been able to buy and use those guns. Now, the reason I take exception is because people are taking these bans, they're taking the handgun ban in the UK in 1997 and hailing it as some sort of success. Now, there's a number of articles all pretty much saying the same thing, but if you were to take snippets from all of them, you would probably get a very accurate picture, but you could quite easily take snippets of all of them and get something that you literally couldn't write something knowingly further from the truth. And that's really what I wanted to maybe put to bed for anybody that may be finding this video now or in future that wants to learn more about actually how it is here in the UK and how the handgun ban had an effect, positive or negative. Well, let's cut through the bullshit and get into the facts. Again, many regular viewers of the channel will already know the big one when it comes to handguns is that it did have no effect on gun crime and also homicides. And I know there was somebody earlier on in the chat saying, make the distinction between homicide and gun crime. Yes, there is a very big distinction, but whichever metric you want to look at, there was no positive benefit from banning handguns, and actually all of the metrics would suggest that it had a negative impact in terms of homicides and also crime rising from it. So it's all well and good, a lot of these news outlets, and I will start with the most factual, which is from an article on Reuters, how Canada, Australia and UK changed laws after mass shootings. Now, this is purely a statement of fact. I don't really have an issue with this. You can't argue with it. What they say is, in terms of the UK, I haven't looked at the other ones, but in the UK, gunman killed 16 children after Duncan Lane. They adopted some of the strictest gun laws in the world. Within 2 years, new laws effectively banned civilians from owning handguns. The UK's rate of homicides is 0.04 per 100,000 people. that's a purely factual statement. What I can take a little bit of exception to is that, again, without saying it, they are suggesting that this is how people should react, and this is the biggest issue, is people are looking at, you know, examples of how other countries reacted without actually looking at how effective they were. It's all well and good going, these countries did this after a mass shooting. Well, okay, but did they work? Because it's all well and good copying them, but we don't want to make things worse. But things just start to get a little bit more ridiculous with really incorrect statements, surprisingly from Time. United Kingdom, like, it just, the number of inaccuracies here are just unbelievable. So around the time of 1996, because around Duncan Lane, at the time there were no specific regulations on handguns in the UK. Like what? Like, and what it's, you know, what this is doing is, you know, like, everyone likes to think of the US as being this sort of wild west, you know, like, just anyone can do whatever the fuck they want and nobody cares, and like, there's no restrictions or no laws or no, you know, whatever. And it's trying to paint the UK like that. It's trying to say that, well, prior to 1996, like, yeah, you could just walk into Asda or you know, Sainsbury's and just buy a handgun, you know, like you used to be able to do, say, in Walmart, and that's getting even harder and harder on its own out in the US. There were massive regulations. There have been regulations, specific regulations on guns in general, including handguns, for like 100 years by this point, right? So that's just painting a very inaccurate picture. And of course, what it then goes on to say is, like, well, like a knight in shining armor, the politicians came in, brought in a load of legislation, and again, this is what everybody leads on to. Oh, we haven't had one since. So it goes in. I think there was one more. But yes, so the last thing, well, there's two things in this last statement from Time. In the years following the law change in 1997, markedly lower gun deaths were recorded. Now, let's fact check that for a second. So this is a graph of homicide rates. So this is a general homicide rate, right? And you're going to see a correlation in a minute. This is a general homicide rate, not specific to any any weapon or any method of homicide. You can see that, you know, quite clearly where the line is, and then a catapult, right? Significantly more murder going on. Now let's have a look at the homicide due to guns. Unsurprisingly, it follows pretty much the exact overlay. If I flick between them, you know, there's a little bit of divergence, but overall the general trends are exactly the same, which goes to show that there's no relation, right? People that are going to go and commit homicide are going to commit homicide. They don't care if they're going to use a gun. They don't care if they're going to go and use a knife, or, unfortunately, what we've seen more recently, a car. And, you know, of course, as Prince Philip quite famously once said, you know, somebody goes and kills somebody with a baseball bat, what are you going to do? Go and ban baseball bats. There is a much bigger effect at play here. There's a much bigger, you know, variable, which is overall it's society. You know, to have that sort of correlation, and also immediately after all these bans, it's just completely not true to say that there was, you know, a dramatic decrease. Okay, immediately after, you know, in the maybe year or two after, there was a decline of what's that, like 10%, and then skyrocketing. And it's just lies upon lies. The UK hasn't experienced a mass shooting since Duncan Lane in 1996. Again, as we all know, quite tragically, recently, a complete and utter lie. There was a mass shooting up in Cumbria. There was a mass shooting in Plymouth. It does, let's say, you know, depend on your definition of a mass shooting, but by most metrics, there's been at least two quite high profile. So again, what Time is trying to do here is control this narrative of the UK used to be like the Wild West with no legislation. They came in, doesn't even talk about the, you know, making the licensing system a little bit more robust, making the checks that police do a little bit more robust. It's specifically targeting ban, which again for me is just completely not the direction that you want to be heading. Time and time again, the most effective way, if you're going to bring any sort of controls or restrictions or legislation in, the ones that work the best are directed at the person. And this sort of complete just fantasy that banning a particular type of gun, and this is what these articles are saying, is, well, they banned handguns and that stopped all shootings. It's like, well, no. The argument, which is like, it's one of these, how do you prove a negative? But one of the consistent arguments when it comes to the handgun ban and gun control in the UK, and of course Dunblane, is Dunblane is the only shooting that we've had at a school here in the UK, right? Guns were around for well over 100 years prior to Dunblane. To say that having one in that 100 years of, you know, regular firearms ownership, and then, you know, that to say that it was stopped by banning that handguns, I think at the very least you have to wait another 100 years to see if one happens again. These were not common occurrences. This was one very rare tragic event. To say that this issue of mass shootings in the UK, that gun homicides or even gun crime was in any way solved or prevented just because there hasn't been a shooting at a school since, is just a complete fallacy. The sort of sad fact and you know, scary fact is that the two high profile shootings that we've had here in the UK subsequent to Dunblane, there was nothing preventing them from being at a school. I can't remember exactly what day, whether it was a weekend or weekday, but those people, you know, Cumbria, the guy walked up and down his street or walked for quite a long time, shooting people as he went. Again, the most recent one at Plymouth, it was a good, I think, around 8-10 minutes until police were on the scene, until the shooting stopped. Please tell me how in any way the fact that they didn't have a handgun, that the current, you know, legislation prevented them from actually going into a school. There was nothing. Does it make it any better that these people don't go into, you know, don't commit these crimes or these atrocious acts with handguns? No, it doesn't make it any worse or any better. And this idea that there's this mass shooting in Texas and this big call to ban guns, and of course it was committed with the evil black AR-15, and they're quoting the UK that banned handguns and has subsequently had mass shooting. Again, there is something much bigger at play. It harks back to society. If you're having, again, massive increases in homicide across the UK, you know, across one country, that is a bigger social issue. That is a much harder problem to tackle, rather than just banning a particular object. I think the most silly one, you know, it is the HuffPost, but UK got tough on guns after 1996. Scotland school attack, there hasn't been one since. And it's like, yeah, okay, that's not an incorrect statement. There hasn't been a school shooting in the UK since 1996. Again, there wasn't one prior. It wasn't like these were happening every year, every 5 years, every 10 years. And again, our mass shootings, whatever your definition is of a mass shooting, are very few and far between. Even back before the semi-auto ban, what was it, 1986? It's probably, if I read enough of these articles, I'll find the date. But pretty much it's every 10 years, right? Regardless of how robust our legislation is, our firearms licensing, there seems to be on average one every 10 years. You know, it was the late 80s, it was the late 90s, we had one in 2010, we had one in 2021. The legislation got more robust and strict and better. You know, the strictest gun laws in the world, but yet every 10 years we still have one. I don't think, you know, that I'm gonna have to be very careful how this one goes, but it's not. I was gonna approach, you know, all the time there is an object in existence, it will at some point be used to kill somebody with, right? It's not nailed down to guns, it's not nailed down to a hockey stick, a baseball bat, a lampshade. Like, if things are available to people to use as a weapon, they will eventually be used. And actually this whole thing of, you know, guns are only designed to do one thing. Well, actually, if guns are so effective and so easy to use to kill people in a UK perspective, why is it only sort of once every 10 years we have these huge, you know, these mass shootings? We've had far more people in the past 10 years in isolated instances, killed by knives, killed by cars, killed by explosives. Actually, that method of terrorism to a certain degree is far more common. So yeah, why this whole narrative? They're sort of trying to change history. They're trying to use the fact that the UK banned handguns as some advocacy as that's why they should ban AR-15s. It's like, well, again, if anything, they should be banning handguns. If that's your point, if banning handguns is what stops mass shootings, then ban those. Don't ban the AR-15. Of course, Trudeau. I've got to be careful when I mention Trudeau. Last time the stream got taken down. More on that later. You know, Trudeau's taken that sort of methodology to some extent. And once again, despite guns being banned, the biggest fact, despite handguns being incredibly restricted after 1997, it still makes up the largest proportion of firearm offences in the UK. It still makes up the largest proportion of homicides in the UK. So crims are going to crim. They don't care about the laws. And the majority of gun crime and certainly homicides are attributed to gangs. They are attributed to the drug trade. They are attributed to criminal activity, not your average sporting shooter, not your average hunter. Yes, it does happen. But on a licensing perspective, and this is why, again, I always say in terms of the UK perspective, I am a big supporter of our licensing system, is because they have made it more robust and they have made it more effective. The Hungerford shooting, before Hungerford, it was not a requirement for your GP to be involved with your application. The guy, again, it's quite easy to say after the fact, was an absolute nutter, right? He had known mental health issues and he was known to be unstable. They weren't required to talk to his GP. They might have even asked him, you know, how's your mental health? How's your physical health? I'm absolutely fine. I don't know exactly who said that because I've got many different voices in my head. But there wasn't that medical check. And they learned from that. They went, oh, hang on a minute. It was actually looking at his medical record. He was a bit nutty. Maybe we should involve GPs. So after Hungerford, it was then a requirement to involve your GP, involve your medical practitioner in assessing your suitability for a firearm certificate here within the UK. Let's not delve too into the whole controversy and conspiracy theories around Dunblane. At the end of the day, what we know is that the individual had their certificates revoked previously. There were known concerns of their activity at Boy Scouts and that they'd been asked to leave. The overall feeling is that pressure was applied or favours were called in to be able to give the guy his licenses back without a real proper full review going through. So again, somebody with known issues and known problem, not necessarily passing the bar of suitability, giving back their licenses, and then goes and commits Dunblane. You want to talk about Carlisle? Well, not Carlisle. It was a Carlisle. Yeah. Was it Carlisle? the Carlisle shooting. There's only like really 4 in the history of the UK. You think I would be able to keep track of them? The guy had a criminal record. He had been arrested from stealing from a nuclear waste facility. I mean, that's got to maybe ring some alarm bells. There were allegations made and arrests made due to allegations of assault, this, that, and the other. And yet he was allowed to continue owning his guns without a full proper review taking place. And of course, quite famously, well known now with the Plymouth shooting, the guy had his tickets taken away. Was obviously not in a stable situation, with many close family members and friends reporting to the police that this guy, you should take the guns away from him. He's not stable. He'd been arrested 2 or 3 times to do with assault, was still taking anger management classes, this, that, and the other. So actually, when you look back at, let's say in a way, Hungerford is an exception, because back then, all of the checks and balances were followed to a degree, and it wasn't a requirement to look into somebody's mental health fitness at that time, or necessarily talk to their GP. So that's probably the outlier, but they learned from that very quickly. But Dunblane, Carlisle, and also Plymouth, severe failings through the process. So it is all well and good having these robust processes, having these robust review, licensing procedures, certification procedures, but as soon as they're not followed, we have a Plymouth. As soon as they're not followed, we have a Carlisle. As soon as they're not followed, we have a Dunblane. And I think that's really what, in terms of in countries that have certification and registration, I know there are a couple of very dirty words to any American viewers and subscribers watching. I understand that you have a very different culture, and obviously the Second Amendment, but where registration and certification is in place, following the guidance, following the restrictions, following the checks and balances is what time and time again seems to prevent these mentally ill people from legally possessing guns and using those legal guns to commit these atrocious acts. And again, selfishly, as an avid shooter, and I'm sure as all the gun owners out there, we want to protect this sport. We want to be able to protect legal gun ownership in the UK, and we want as much separation from people that are going to go and commit these atrocious acts that are going to cover the shooting community's name in absolute mud. And I'm not saying in any way, shape or form that it's better if one of these atrocious events happens with an illegal gun versus a legal gun. Absolutely, they're just as tragic. It's just as horrific. Again, selfishly, if it's done with an illegal gun, if the firearm or weapon is obtained illegally, at least there is that separation to the legal gun owners, and you can say, not our fucking problem. We've got the laws, we're all following them. All the guns that are owned legally are absolutely no risk to anybody. Deal with the illegal guns. And I know it's very unlikely for that to ever happen in the US, but it certainly is a big silver lining of having a certification system in the UK. It makes a very, very clear divide between somebody that has gone through government checks and police checks and is sort of certified, rubber stamped to own a gun, versus the criminals that own guns. And where it doesn't necessarily get blurred, I don't know necessarily the best way to explain it or best way to portray it, but certainly with systems in the US where anybody can just go out there and buy a gun. Of course, as soon as they use that gun, they become a criminal, but they're not a criminal in obtaining that gun. So up until that point, they're a legal gun owner. Therefore, you have a lot more incidences involving legally held firearms and legal gun owners. And that's why I think it's potentially harder in the US to make that divide and to give that them and us approach in terms of lawful, sensible, responsible gun owners, and the criminal element, the nut job element, and the element that really you don't want owning guns in any way, shape or form. So yeah, I think it's something that we need to be aware of when we see what articles like this, when we see news articles twisting the truth, twisting what actually happened prior, well, what was the state of play prior, how it changed, what, you know, was it changed for the better? They are trying to rewrite history in some sort of sick, twisted justification to ban guns in a completely different country with completely different laws. You know, it's been a very long time, a very, very long time since the American laws, well, since our laws in the UK were anywhere near similar to the US. I don't think there's potentially any time in history that our shooting and gun ownership culture in the UK has been in any way similar to the US. So it really is a case of apples and oranges. At the end of the day, like there's always seems to be this thing as well, you're a shooter, you're a gun owner, therefore you don't care about these shootings, you just want them to carry on, and that is absolutely not the case. Objecting to these suggestions, objecting to what is being said in these articles, it isn't in any way an advocacy for these to continue, or any sort of advocacy for not wanting to do something to stop it. Of course, again, we want these to stop. But quoting these meaningless bans, they have been proven not to work. So let's actually have a conversation about what does work, what does prevent these shootings, and certainly in places like the US, it's not more firearm restrictions or firearms laws. It's mental health, and of course, what we were saying last week, and you know, I don't necessarily want to repeat myself again on it, but a huge element of this is the media. The constant 24-hour news coverage of shootings, and I've talked about this before as well, but the copycat effect, it is incredibly well documented, well proven, that the more you show these shootings, the more you publicize them, the more you put these sick, deranged individuals on a pedestal and give them the attention that they so desperately crave, the more you're going to get those types of individuals seeking to do the same for this eternal recognition or eternal glory, as they see it in their sick and twisted little minds. So I really think, again, New Zealand has the best approach on this. Don't mention their name, don't plaster their face, don't make them infamous, and don't give them what they want. And sort of bringing it on to what happened last week. So anybody that was here during the stream, YouTube thought it was appropriate to cut me midstream, and I thought it was maybe to do with the subject matter. Of course, we were discussing the handgun ban in Canada, and of course we were talking a bit about the Texas mass shooting, and again a little bit about mass shootings in the UK. Broken YouTube community guidelines. As it transpired, it was nothing to do with the subject matter on the face of it. So basically, I'm in a routine now of, when I show videos, more for copyright reasons, when I show videos on stream, I usually mute them, unless they're sort of my own content, and then, you know, I'm the content owner, so I can do that. There's no copyright issues. But of course, I showed a PCC video, which was a match video, and it was shooting. There was, you know, gunfire on the stream, gunfire audio. And I think maybe an accumulative effect of talking a bit about the shooting in Texas, the subject matter of banning handguns, and then the YouTube algorithm and bots or whatever picking up on some gunfire in the stream. As I'm sure you can imagine, YouTube are a little bit sensitive at the moment of people using their platform to live stream mass shooting. So I think, given the current climate, they've probably upped their algorithm, tweaked a few dials, maybe up to 10, and is probably a little bit more sensitive than usual, and unknowingly I managed to trigger that. But I put in an appeal. They did side with me and said, actually, on review, we got it wrong, really sorry about that. Doesn't really make up for cutting the stream halfway through, but anyway, an apology is an apology. But that is sort of case in point in terms of trend and what the media is doing when it comes to mass shootings. There is an almost craze now to live stream these shootings. You know, the sick individual that, you know, they're not content anymore in just going and committing these atrocious acts. What they have seen, and I can't remember what the first one was. I don't know whether it was New Zealand, but it was like there was one mass shooting, and it was like the first mass shooting that the guy had actually live streamed it, right? And everyone went, well, that's a new one. Like, we haven't encountered that before. And what did the media do? Plastered it everywhere. Stills from the shooting. The fact that he live streamed it was just, it was almost more publicized. It was even more of a bigger news story than the actual shooting itself. So of course, what happens? Any other sick individual that wants to go and commit these atrocious acts, they go, oh, we're live streaming them now, are we? Well, we'll do the same. So platforms like YouTube, like Twitch, Facebook, Instagram, whatever, they saw this coming. They thought, shit, there's been so much publicity and so much attention on the fact that these shootings are now being live streams. It's only a matter of time before there's a craze and a wave of this, and this is what we're seeing. This is how the media directly affects not only the shootings themselves, where they're committed, how they are committed, what they are committed with, and what media they then stream to. Because the AR-15 by the media has been made the poster child of mass shootings, despite a fairly even balance between AR-15s and handguns, despite the outright majority of homicides in the US being committed with handguns. The evil gun poster child is the AR-15. The media's done that. Like, make no bones about it. That's not statistically backed. That's not factually backed. That is purely scaremongering and storytelling from the media. So what now is the choice of gun for these deranged individuals when they want to go and commit an act like this? It's the AR-15, because that's what the media has told me is the gun that people use. Where is the location that these individuals go to? Unfortunately, the reason that I think you're seeing a lot more shootings in schools in the US, of course, there is the argument of the gun-free zone, this, that, and the other, but they're publicized. They get far more media attention. Of course, it is a more horrific, tragic event that when they take place in schools, but they are publicized. They are publicized more, and it's like, the media has created this like checklist for mass shooters. Basically an unwritten guide of what they use, how they do it, where they do it. So ban the media. Right? Or restrict the media. We need some media control in here, right? We need to control the media. You do that, you stop publicizing these shootings to an extent, or you make it about the victims, right? Because it's one of these things, these people have a deep hatred for the people. They've never met them, they don't know them in most cases in these shootings, but they have such a deep hatred to people and society that, they want to, not only do they want to kill them and to inflict pain to countless people by taking those lives, they want the attention for doing it, and the media gives it. If you flip it the other way around, if you make the victims the people that we talk to, you give the victims more publicity, more attention, more information about, watch mass shootings stop overnight. So yeah, anyway, that's sort of my thought. A little bit of runoff from, I think, last week as well, before YouTube rudely interrupted me. I've been seeing the chat going crazy. I've been seeing the ban hammer being swung quite heavily, like Thor, like Thor on cocaine, swinging that bitch hard and fast. And yeah, so Dan's been busy. I do appreciate it, Dan. I don't quite often, maybe not as often as I say, but I do really appreciate you helping out, because there would be some horrendous comments if Dan wasn't there with the ban hammer. But yeah, let me know what you guys think about it. Any points that I've potentially missed, any points that you think are good counterpoints. again, I think this is something that the whole community should be aware of when these sorts of articles are out there. You're not going to get other media outlets, balancing the scales. I think it's up to firearms owners in the UK and shooters in the UK and across the world to balance the scales to stop the misinformation getting out there. English Shooting, does the EU plan to do any gun banning after what Canada is trying to do? Oh, they're constantly trying to do gun bans. I mean, there's I haven't followed it incredibly closely, but there was the whole push a few years ago about 10-round magazine limits, banning, I think, semi-automatics or even AR-15s or assault rifles or whatever. There's been a constant push from the EU. They've taken a different route this time, and of course we've actually, the biggest threat to shooting sports, not only in the EU but in the UK, is the lead ban. They are trying to ban lead. They're being fairly successful about it. That's going to have a far bigger connotation to the shooting sports community and shooting community as a whole than just banning, restricting us to 10-round magazines. Like, yeah, that's a massive pain, and again, doesn't achieve anything. But you can still sports shoot. Like, okay, for an IPSC match, we're going to have to change mags a bit, a bit more, but the guns stay the same, the ammunition stays the same. You just get very good at reloading. It's almost like shooting in the 2+1 division in shotgun. So that is a far bigger threat to us at the moment. But as far as I'm aware, there's no big push for handguns bans. This is why I think, again, it's so important to stop this incorrect narrative and misinformation from getting out there, is because if this becomes the narrative of how good the handgun ban was in the UK, the government's going to, the government at the moment is looking for any easy win that they can get, right? I would not be surprised if they had a massive review of our gun ownership, just to be like, right, sorry, well, you can own AR-15s in the UK? Oh, yeah, Boris, but they are 2.2 rimfire, semi-auto or straight pull. Don't care. Ban them. That would be an easy win for the Conservatives right now, and they need everything that they can get. If they're going to go off the back of this narrative that somehow Dunblane was a massive, not Dunblane, but the handgun ban because of Dunblane was a massive success. I mean, something I periodically, when I need a laugh, go onto the gun control network, and sort of even they unknowingly admit the problem with handguns still. Right, they hail the handgun ban. You go, bit of context, right? You go to the Gun Control Network achievements page, handguns, right? Bang, that is it. That is our number one, crowning glory, like handguns, right? But you go here, right, and they do this every year. It's actually if you read through some of the bullshit, it can be a fairly good guide for statistics and information in the UK, because they do their own recorded gun deaths in per year. I mean, 47 deaths now. Usually on average it's around 20, which is sort of concerning, because that's 2 or 3 times what the normal number is. Although again, they're saying gun deaths. I think the statistics that I normally look at maybe don't include suicide, but even they say, like, right, and it's very subtle. So homicides, 12 due to shotguns, 2 knowingly caused by handguns, 1 automatic, so again, can't own that, and 12 unknown. And here's the kicker: most are likely to be handguns. Now, why would they say that? Right? Because just statistically speaking, they are. But one of their biggest successes is banning handguns. But yet, again, if statistically speaking, if you tell somebody's been shot and has been killed with a gun, it's most likely going to be a handgun. So how on earth can you say that the handgun ban was a success? I mean, full auto guns, they've been banned for a pretty long time, and yet murders are still being committed with them. And shotguns, shotguns are the most popular gun owned here within the UK. And, unfortunately, due to the numbers of them, I mean, there's, I think there's something like 2 million shotguns. You have 2 million of something. occasionally they are going to fall into criminals' hands, right? They're either going to be taken, they're going to be, sold, by, let's say, less than honest dealers, this, that, and the other. They are going to fall into criminals' hands, right? So, but to have that outweigh, let's say most are likely to be handguns. So let's say that's 7, right? At the best case, that's 7 and 2 confirmed. So you're talking 9, right? 2 million legally owned shotguns, around 2 million legally owned shotguns, and 12 shotguns deaths. Pretty much no handguns being legally owned in the UK, apart from very, very few isolated exceptions. And yet it's only, let's say, assuming it's only 75% less attributed to homicides. And it could be more. Let's say all 13 of those are handguns, plus the 2. The more homicides are committed with handguns. So the statistics and the facts just don't stack up to the handgun ban being effective. And even more so, you can see the way that continuously the facts are twisted. The facts are, incorrectly portrayed. So this is quite an old article. I mean, it's like getting on for 6 years ago now. But this is what they love to do, right? And they say, oh, look, the VCRA Act, which sort of restricted imitation firearms in some regard. So basically, if it was a realistic imitation firearm, you needed an exemption to be able to own it. And it's been hailed as this great act because, look, okay, it was already falling, but they're saying, well, look, it fell even more after we introduced this act. But actually, when you look further back, they're cropping it from 2003. So yeah, from the highest that firearm offences has ever been in England and Wales, we did see a dramatic increase. What they don't show is this continued rise. Right, and again, interesting dates, 1998, skyrocket. What was the biggest thing around here that had anything to do with guns or legislation? Right, the handgun ban. Right, it just, if you want to talk, and I'm not saying that it was, right. If you want to do some gun control level statistical analysis, you would say that, oh yeah, absolutely, the handgun ban caused this massive rise in crime. I think there's something far bigger at play within society going on here that's causing that. Again, the likes of the social economics, like you've got mental health, you've got people's people's the disparity in wages, you've the poverty line. All of these things, I think, contribute far bigger, have far bigger contributions to crime, to firearm related offences, to homicides, firearm related homicides. I did see as well somebody, it's been reported that the person responsible for the Texas shooting, their mother, they came from a single mother or a single parent household. Again, I don't necessarily want to get onto that specific one, but in terms of stability, in terms of a nuclear family, and I know there's been plenty of people raised that are well-established, law-abiding citizens from a single parent. It's not like you're a single parent, you're going to be a mass shooter. That's not what I'm saying at all. But certainly a more unstable home than a nuclear mother and father, and it's been reported that the mother was a heavy drug user. So that I think had more to do with the fact that the son became a mass shooter than video games or the sort of guns that you could get hold of, or how easy it was to get hold of a gun. That your mother being a hard drug user, that's going to affect you quite a lot, right? It's oh no, but it was the video games, not your mother shooting up in the bathroom. It's just utterly ridiculous that you can just blame a particular object versus like fucking like mental trauma that somebody would have been going through in that potential situation. I can't remember if I got onto it last week or not. I think I was cut short, but got the English Shooting beer review, New World Northern Monk, or is it Northern Monk New World, India Pale Ale. It's quite a nice one. Would recommend if you're if you see it about. Oh, is Daniel getting salty? Oh yeah, if I didn't make it clear, I think it's been clear for anybody that was maybe confused at the start. This is not anything to do with the Canadian ban. Like, I know that's very topical at the moment, but no, we're very much talking about the UK handgun ban. Yeah, Roy Jennison. That's a point that I forgot to make, actually. You said, don't forget that we had the massacre in Hungerford in 1987. Oh, was I right? Did I say 1986? Anyway, late 80s. They banned a particular type of gun. They bigger point to be made that's just come to me, right? They literally banned AR-15s in the UK after Hungerford. And yet, again, quite scarily, periodically, we've had mass shooting since. Banning a particular type of gun doesn't solve gun crime. It doesn't solve gun homicides. Again, there's going to be a lot of people that disagree, but certification, checks and balances, police interviews, safe storage, literally safe storage, ensuring that firearms don't fall into the wrong hands. And I know, and it does sort of annoy me, this whole like, well, criminals are going to get guns anyway. It's like, all right, well, let's leave them out in your fucking driveway then. Like, what sort of criminals are going to get guns, so therefore legal gun owners shouldn't take care of their guns? It's like just walk me through that logic, right? Like, I think I've said this before. The guns are not cheap, right? They're usually quite valuable items. If you're an avid shooter and an avid gun owner, you usually don't have just one. It is an addiction. Seek help if required. Like Guns Anonymous, GA. So hi, I'm a gun addict. Oh, the meeting would be full, wouldn't it? But yeah, they usually have a few. Even in the UK, an avid shooter will have 3-4 guns, probably average cost, let's say, 1,000-1,500 quid. Because you get the accuracy internationals, you use your optics. You've got even some target rifles, your single shot 308 target rifles, could be thousands and thousands of pounds. Like take even a 1522 build, right? I think 650 for the basic 1522, and you put a £400 optic on it, you put 200-300 quid's worth of accessories on it, you buy 100 quid's worth of magazines. Before you know it, you've turned that £650 gun into something that's knocking on £2,000. So these are valuable objects, right? You look after your valuables, right? You make sure that they're not going to get stolen purely from the financial aspect. Never mind knowing that, well, not knowing, but having that, being in that position that a criminal has got hold of your guns. Where is that gun going to end up? Where are they going to use it? This whole argument of, well, criminals are going to get guns anyway. Like, yeah, but I'd rather they weren't using mine. Thank you very much. Like, it's just, I will sleep a little bit better knowing that, one of mine isn't out there committing all these atrocities. So, yeah, I don't like that necessarily, that argument. I know there's a better argument of the whole, again, in the US, the whole thing of self-defense and home defense and things like that. In the UK, that's not a concern for us. We don't own firearms for the purposes of self-defense. So we are legally required to keep them in a safe. I don't know why any other gun owner would want their guns just left in a closet, left lying about. It just, on so many different aspects, I don't see why that's sensible. Again, we're all adults here. We can all be treated like adults. But I don't think you'd ever convince me why to leave a gun out. That just doesn't, here, let me just leave this £2,000 on my coffee table. Oh, someone broke into my house and took the money. And certainly out in the US, where they're going to flip guns fairly easily for cash. But yeah, maybe a different topic for a different day. Gun control is not buying as many as you want. That needs to be a t-shirt. Of course, one of the most famous non-gun mass casualty attacks thingies, whatever you want to call, is Nice. As Final says, 80 people killed and 400 more were seriously injured with a truck. No gun necessary. I mean, it's Berlin, like literally in the last few days. I think at least one person killed, but like dozens of people injured. Cumbria. I was saying Carlisle, wasn't I? Oh, well, it's sort of the same, isn't it? Cumbria shootings. That's what I meant. But it was said years ago with your BBC interview with Brits with Guns series, when the NRA instructor said there is just no way of telling if someone is going to go wacko and go and do it. Like, yes, like at the end of the day, you can have all the checks and balances in the world. And we've had this discussion quite a lot with these proposals to go to 10-year certificates rather than the 5-year certificates. Is how long is too long in terms of reviewing somebody's suitability, right? Let's not have the argument of whether certification or suitability checks are constitutional or legal. In the UK we have them, and I support the ones that we have. So if we're just going to go on that agreed assumption that we have suitability checks, how long should you go between those suitability checks? 5 years is a very long time. A lot happens in 5 years, but likewise a lot can happen in a month. You can lose a job, you can lose a partner, you can lose family members in whatever way, shape or form. You can have, in 1 month, you can have an incredible amount of bereavement and strife hit you, which in a month, there's been cases where people have completely changed personality and stability. People can go downhill mentally very, very quickly in a very short amount of time. So, it is very hard to gauge if somebody's going to do that. But there are certain markers, and again, this is why I don't think, unfortunately, mass killings, not necessarily mass shootings, but mass killings are never going to be preventable. Unless we are literally just everyone is put under house arrest for the rest of their lives. Even that's not going to be 100% effective, let's be completely honest. Unless people are confined to little white boxes for the rest of their lives, there are going to be, unfortunately, sick, angry, deranged individuals that want to go out there and try and kill as many people for whatever purpose that they're going out and doing it. So, why this fixation on guns? They ban guns tomorrow. They eradicate guns out of the US entirely. Then it will be knives, because that's pretty much what's happened here in the UK. Nobody's talking about the quite significant knife homicide rate that we have here, the quite significant rates of stabbings that we have. I think there was 1 year where in London alone there were 100 people killed by knives just in London, like absolutely insane. So really the means don't matter. The methods used, people are always going to go and try and kill them. So go and kill one another. So again, focus on the fact that there's people out there wanting to kill large amounts of people rather than what they're going and doing it with. It's sort of like, that's not the issue here. It's like murder's already illegal, guys. Like, I ban the guns. It's like, you know, there's literally no firearm offence that is more than murder, right? It's like the most prison time they're going to get for shooting somebody is the fact that they've killed somebody, not the fact that they've maybe obtained the gun illegally. So it is incredibly hard. But again, there are ways of mitigating it and preventing it to some extent, and I do think our licensing system and our certification system and the checks and balance in place is as good as that can be. You know, let's say clerical errors, which at best is what happened in Devon and Cornwall firearms licensing department. Clerical errors are always going to happen. People are going to slip through the gaps. That needs to be looked at. That needs to be maybe more robust in some extent. I mean, that's part of the reason I think we're seeing such increased delays with firearms licensing across the UK, is because they are making sure every T is crossed, every I is dotted. The next one, and hopefully it doesn't happen, but if another firearms licensing drops the ball as bad as they did in Devon and Cornwall with the Plymouth shooting, there are going to be some serious fucking questions asked, and no firearms licensing department wants to be that next department, do they? You know, so they are really making sure that everything is okay. But yeah, so you can never tell. But again, you can never tell if someone's going to drive a truck into a load of people, never tell if they're going to take a knife to a load of people, but you can do reasonable checks to mitigate that risk to some extent. And let's not forget that shooting is quite an avid social sport. I mean, like, think about how many bars and fucking pubs there are at Bisley alone. It's a very social community, a very social sport, and we talk about self-policing all of the time. Like, if there's somebody at your, and this isn't, again, you can look at it two ways, snitching or grassing on other people, but if there is somebody at your club that concerns you, like legitimately concerns you, you know, I would say never feel free, maybe, you know, not raising it with the police, but certainly raising it with a more senior member of the club. You know, and this happens quite routinely. This happens quite a lot where clubs will go, hang on a minute, that guy is not acting right. And you know, you sort of all know what I'm talking about. It's not, you know, there's eccentric, and then there's fucking weird. It's like, if someone, you know, if someone you think is going through a particularly hard time and they're at risk to themselves or others, like, don't sit there, you know, with your bum on your hands. Right. Again, I think it's up to the shooting community. The shooting community knows shooters better than anybody else. Right. There's going to be a handful of people that I know that I have a far better understanding of their suitability to own firearms than the police do, and vice versa. You know, it's like, you know, Connors. Take Connors. I've pretty much worked in a box for the last 4-5 years with him. You know, pretty much day-to-day contact, significant amount of our weekly hours together, right? Who do you think knows more about his suitability than me, and who do you think knows more about my suitability than him? And you know, it's that difficult. It does happen. You know, there's loads of examples of friends having to make that call. It's not nice, but there's loads of examples where people come through the other side and they go, you were right to do that. I was not in a good place. And again, it's all about, you can't prevent somebody from doing something stupid either to other or themselves. But selfishly, it's better that they don't do it with a legal firearm that protects the sport and protects firearms ownership. And again, I think the shooting community is better placed than any you know, authority, department, you know, police officer, whatever, to sort of be making those calls about people. Life of Riley, thanks for reminding me. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Lots more people watching than liking. Maybe you're not liking what you're watching, but if you are, hit that like button, hit the dislike button. It's all engagement. Engagement helps beat the YouTube algorithms, as I'm sure if you're avid YouTube watchers, you will have heard many, many times before. GZERP, there was an incident some years back in Suffolk where a kid planned to shoot up his school and brought a shotgun into school, but the changed his mind and got 7 years. Jesus. So he said a plan, like, how did he get hold of the gun? Like, that would be my first question. Was he a license holder? Did he steal it? Was somebody not storing their gun correctly? What are they even replacing lead with? Steel? Yeah. That's pretty much it. That's like really the only feasible replacement. Registration does nothing for public safety. Before 1988, shotguns were not registered. Yeah, again, like this, I'm all about the person, not about the guns. It's yeah. So I think you're right. Do we need firearms registration? Well, how do you then check that somebody isn't legally buying them and then selling them off? How do you make sure that they're staying with that person? So there's those maybe examples, but yes, in theory, all you need is a certification or a license. I've gone through the GP. I've had my interview. I've got a good reason. I've got no mental health issues, no criminal background, this, that, and the other. I'm a sound, fit, stable, suitable individual to own a firearm. Here's your green pass to go and buy a gun. We said it loads of times before. If they want to streamline firearms licensing, save a shitload of money, and be far more effective, scrap the 2 license system. Although, like Connors and I were talking about maybe a tweak to that, not is having that was it. Like, why? So he's finally it's only taken him God knows 4 years of me nagging him, finally got a shotgun certificate. How about that? Who applies for a firearm certificate and doesn't get a shotgun certificate? It's actually more common than you think. I think also, David, thanks for joining as always, David. Unless anything's changed, I think David's in the exact same boat. Why would you go through all the process of having a firearm certificate and not tick that little extra box to get a shotgun certificate? And then it made me think, well, in a way, like, I know why we have a shotgun certificate, because some people don't want to go through the whole process of getting a firearm certificate. But why do you have the option? Like, why isn't it an automatic thing? Why do you need a shotgun certificate if you've got a firearm certificate? Right? There just should be another page added onto your firearm certificate, which is an automatically given shotgun certificate. That would reduce option, maybe streamline some processes. Not having to do that. Like, do I need to print out a shotgun certificate or not, or what shotguns? Like, just put it all on one bloody license. And for that matter, like, okay, you need good reason for a firearm in the UK, whereas you don't with a shotgun. That is a big differentiator. But at the end of the day, like, if you don't, why do you need a reason? If you're a suitable, safe person, why do you need a good reason? Like, why are you allowed to own a shotgun with no reasoning, but a 2.2 rifle, bolt action rifle, you need a good reason to own? So streamline it. Have one, remove that good reason caveat. I don't think that really, apart from the whole joining a club, this, that, and the other. We've talked about that on the shotgun certificate before. Maybe even bringing in mandatory, training. It does. I know I'm not advocating for more control or harsher restrictions, but it does sort of baffle me, that you can, it's like turn 18, well, not even 18, go and get a shotgun certificate, buy a shotgun, have never fired a shotgun in your life before. It's like, at least maybe have something there to say, like, yeah, you should just be shown what the pointy end is and where the triggers are and safe handling. It's why going to playgrounds and on game shoots, it can be a little bit scary sometimes. But anyway, like, just one certificate. Just let's reduce it to just one certificate and streamline stuff. But yeah, I don't think necessarily that registrations of firearms reduces homicide. The registering the guns after the person's been deemed as fit and suitable. It's sort of like, well, again, it's not the guns. It's not the guns that are the issue. It's the person. It's the nut behind the butt. Andy Carlos just spent $2.5K on a T2 WMR and got finished pimping what and hot finished pimping you yet. What? I'm slightly scared by that statement. But the T2, I've been saying this since it was first released. I need to get my hands on one, right? I need to shoot one. I should really just reach out to the tunnel and see if they'd send down a demo model. It does interest me. I know I wasn't particularly warm about it to begin with. For those of you that don't know, I'll bring that up quickly. T2 rifle. I'm just going to get Terminator searches, aren't I? T2 rifles. Oh no, first stage, first page results. The Tunnel Sports. So this is a UK made rifle, sort of completely from the ground up design. They were at the Target Shooting Show last year, and they looked very high quality. They looked very, very good. And there's no rifles. Here we go. The page wasn't super helpful last time. It's been a while. So 22 WMR, 9mm straight pull, 223 straight pull, and I think I've heard that there's going to be other calibers as well. So yeah, a little bit. My whole thing with it was that I thought they'd maybe been a little bit too clever with the design. But seeing it in person, it is actually quite a good looking gun. Certainly some of the paint jobs and Cerakotes that they do, but I believe it is fully mil-spec. You can't no, I think you can put another upper on it. These are all things that I want to find out, but yeah, I watch this space. The thing is, they don't really do media. Let's have a look at media. Let's see if they've got any photos, because it doesn't do it justice. The display they had at the Target Shooting Show was just absolutely incredible. No, they haven't got any. So yeah, I mean, if they need somebody to come in there and help their social media, I might know somebody. But yeah, let me know how you get on. Be looking at the T2 9mm. Anyone had a go? Yeah, I'd maybe I'll get the 9mm down as well. English shooting. The biggest problem in the US is the lack of affordable mental health care, and such these cranks fall through the net and pass the federal background checks. Yeah, I would say nail and head. If it's could you imagine not just gun crime, but the equivalent today of £500 million spent, £500 million with a B, spent on the handgun ban, and still homicide rates and firearm related deaths skyrocketing through the roof as a result of it. So it didn't work. But could you imagine what they could do with £500 million for policing? What does that? I do this every now and then with figures. So £500 million. That's a lot of zeros. I'm not used to that amount of zeros. I mean, I think the average salary of a police officer is 24,000. So that's for 1 year. That would be 21,000 police officers. Even if you divide that by 10, so that would be, an extra 2,000, nearly 2,200, 2,100 police officers for 10 years. That's what £500 million would get you at an average of £24,000 salary. Of course, I know it's not necessarily as easy as that, but just noddy. What do you think's would have had a better effect on crime, right? An extra couple thousand police officers, or banning a particular type of gun, right? It's if you hadn't guessed, it's a rhetorical question. David, again, if you want to send down a Caltech, I know they have graced my hands briefly in the past, but if you'd like to send one down again, I would love to actually get that on film. That would be pretty good. Chris Smith, have they made a narwhal tusk section 1 yet? Well, technically, if you use no, it's not classified, but well, it becomes an offensive weapon, which is illegal to possess. But does that mean it becomes section 5? If you use a narwhal tusk as a weapon, does that then classify it as section 5? A section 5 narwhal tusk? Is that like a fully automatic narwhal tusk, or like a semi-auto full bore narwhal tusk? Stephen Anderson, have you heard about your application yet? Despite my word of telling you guys, of course, as soon as there was any update, I'd let you know and tell you. Well, I didn't. There is a little bit of an update, and it's one of these like cautiously optimistic updates. So I don't know if a lot of you guys know, but I now have a solicitor working on my behalf, or representing me when it comes to my application, and for a variety of reasons, mainly just time, but also having somebody that is harder to bullshit, so for those of you that don't know, and I tell you this because if you ever need a firearm specialist solicitor, go for her. It's Laura Swansbury. Her and her partner Nick Doherty co-wrote the firearms handbook, and it's sort of like a complete guide to firearms law within the UK. She is a firearms specialist solicitor. Her partner is a firearms specialist barrister, otherwise known as sort of like the dream team. And you can take this both ways, but they work for both sides, right? They represent license holders and shooters, but they also will work for the police. I believe Nick was involved in the Full Metal Jacket trial, and was also involved. There's this sort of myth, this legend that there is a handgun, or there is a club that is allowed to own long barrel pistols. That is completely factual. That exists. There is a club, I think, in the London area that has long barrel pistols under their club firearms, and it was, I believe, Nick that represented that club, or the individual that decided to put their neck out on the line and take it to court, and ended up winning, because a long barrel pistol does conform to a rifle. It's not anything sort of special in that regard. It's only the police that tend to classify it as this sort of non-definable long barrel pistol. Unfortunately, that didn't set precedent. That's why, again, they still can't be shared. But anyway, they're a very experienced team. They've both helped me with other matters in the past, and Laura is now full-time. So not full-time. It's not like she's just sat there like just phoning Hampshire every 5 minutes, like, can he have his license back yet? No. Can he have? No. So she's representing me. My application, so basically it's another waiting game, but at least I've been told it's not a no. So I had my interview, and obviously they have to go back and they have to write a report, which is submitted to the chief of police. At the end of the day, it is the chief of police of your local county's police that has the final say on your certificate. And she's been trying to get an update and sort of a feel for how things are going. Overall, it sounded reasonably positive. I'm not going to say necessarily my application is the easiest, most straightforward application, and that there aren't questions that are going to be raised through things that have been said or done or have happened in the past. But I think I don't know. My optimistic feel is that they're like, well, hang on a minute, like, okay, the guy's doing this full time now. He's been doing it for a while. I'm shooting pretty much every weekend at the moment. I usually have a gun in my hands pretty much every single day under a variety or myriad of exemptions. Side note, chauffeur exemption. Very, very interesting. I'll get onto that in a second. So it's like, like how much more of a danger am I going to be having the guns sat in the safe behind me? And I'm not even going to store the guns here. They're going to be stored where I spend most of my time, which is at the office. And I think it sort of got to that point where I've, if they do have any concerns about the channel or, past issues, it's like, well, yeah, okay, but he continuously demonstrates on a pretty much daily basis that he's not going to go and do something stupid with a firearm. So I think we might have reached that point. It's taken long enough, but you never know. At the end of the day, the final say is with the chief of police. The only downer on it is that I've been told it could be another 2 to 3 months. On that note, as a more general public service announcement, somebody, and they know who they are, did send me, apparently Hampshire has been sending out a number of letters recently. I'm not going to show any details, but this seems to be a general letter that has been sent out to anybody currently in the application process. And let me cherry pick it for a second. It doesn't actually. I thought it gave some sort of timescale. Who? Well, it just says we understand this is not the level of service you expect, and want to assure you we are working hard to complete as soon as possible. We've taken action to create additional capacity to support this process. This is Hampshire, by the way, Hampshire Firearms Licensing. At this stage, we are unable to provide a precise time scale, but we'll keep you updated. Yeah, sorry, I thought there was a little bit more information that other than Hampshire just saying there's massive delays. But there are still massive delays. I've been told it's going to be another 2 or 3 months before the sort of report is handed over and the final decision is made. I'm hoping, again, this is part of the benefit of having somebody like Laura representing you, is that it's not so much about pressure, but as I was going to say, like applying pressure, it's not so much about that, but she can certainly highlight the fact that I've already been waiting an incredibly long time to get it back. The fact that the certificates are, very vocational. I work full time in the gun industry. Like pretty much the majority of my life revolves around firearms of some description. And all that, this, that, and the other. There's also the whole competing. I'm very much focused on getting myself up to an international level in a selection of disciplines. So all of that combined, it's not like I want to sit here and say that my application is more important than anybody else's, but it fucking is. Like, please just give it to me. Could everybody with an application in Hampshire at the moment just write them a letter and go, look, I want mine done as soon as possible, but please do Callum's first. I'd really appreciate it. Free patches for everyone. So yes, it's sounding, it's not 100%. I wouldn't be surprised at all if 2 months down the line I get a, we thought about it, but no. But this is certainly the closest that I've been in a very long time. It's certainly the most positive that it's been in a very long time, and it's gonna, it's optimistic. We've also had the sort of go ahead, as it were. It's been confirmed that I will. I don't know necessarily if it's going to be. Well, it's they are okay. They are okay with me being a servant of an RFD, again, which is, you know, I don't know why they were and then weren't, but that's, I've now had that confirmed, that whilst they would like for me to wait, or they would like whoever it is to wait, that actually they're okay with it, as long as there are no other concerns brought to their attention. So obviously that makes things a little easier, certainly on a commercial aspect, a business aspect. So yeah, it's, you know, my thinking is sort of like, how, if there was something glaringly concerning about my application, how on one hand could they say, yeah, all right, you like go forward with becoming a servant of an RFD, and then go, well, no, he's not suitable to have an FAC. It's, again, I know the ultimate decision lies with the chief of police, and it will be their ultimate judgment. But from the sounds of it, like, firearms licensing is a bit like, you know, yeah, all right then. I can't say they're happy about it. I wouldn't say that. But yeah, that's a big step forward. Again, it's very, very, very positive. And I mean, I might as well like get that whole thing about the servancy out there, because, you know, it means that there's probably going to be other guns that I'm going to be able to show you guys, and other stuff that I'm going to be able to do as a servant. And before anybody asks, well, how is he able to do that? Like the amount of questions when I started shooting Section 1, I started doing Section 1 shotgun reviews and LBPs previously. Well, that's potentially on the cards going forward. So, but it's certainly more for business functions day to day. We are, as a side note for anyone that, you know, likes to, you know, check out Magload and know what we're doing. We are getting into gun building. So not necessarily gun building, but it's something that we've talked about doing for a very long time. Unfortunately, me not being a servant and not being able to be sort of fully involved with that process has been prohibitive. But we're now going to be looking at doing sort of off-the-shelf packages. So literally come in, buy a gun, walk out with it. No having to buy all the bits and do it yourself. You know, get a gun, bring it down, have work done. They will be off the shelf, ready to go. Sort of race guns. Of course, you know, stuff like the Benelli M2, the Supernova, the 1522 battle arms, things like that. We're looking at having, you know, display models. You know, this is not going to be an instant overnight thing, but that was part of the whole thing of having our own premises and having our own sort of space is to be able to do that and have like the mag-loaded guns as it were. So again, me finally being, you know, having the thumbs up as a servant, that means that I can get more involved with that and show you guys what we're doing more and be a part of the process. And I'll legally be able to sell guns, which will be a novel experience. I'll be legally able to sell guns, but I won't be able to legally buy them. Like, how does that work? So yeah, anyway, that's an update on the certificate. It's not really an update, but it's like edging ever closer. But trust me, like, you will know when/if the certificates hit the doormat. You guys will know that is for sure. See, Andy, 2 certificates mean dollar bills. Not necessarily. Bearing in mind that there is, as the Gun Control Network has pointed out more recently, there is actually a cost to the taxpayer, a cost to police in doing licenses. They don't make money in doing separate certificates. It would actually be far more economical for them to only have to do one and charge that singular fee. It's sort of no more or less work. You're in the exact same situation too. You've had your FAC for 2 years and now waiting on the Met to hopefully send me back my shotgun certificate you've applied for. Again, like, why does, no, like, FAC, it's a little box. Would you like a shotgun certificate too? Yes. Like, it's like, would you like to be able to buy more guns? Like, if anybody's watching this stream and goes no to that, please feel free to leave, right? It's hard enough to own guns in the UK to begin with. You don't want to sort of own goal yourself by not ticking that little box. Like, just do it. It's like one of those, it's far easier. It's far, well, no, it's not even far easier. You're not going to look back and go, oh, I really wish I hadn't ticked that extra box. It's just like, even if you don't buy any Section 2 shotguns, at least you've got it, right? At least you could, if the urge came over you to drive to a playground and rent a gun, at least you could. You know, if a friend wanted to loan you a gun, you know, you can go for 72 hours to your playground with it. Like, why wouldn't you? I honestly can't, you know, I understand the reverse, because that's exactly what I did. Found shooting, fell in love with it, immediately applied for my shotgun certificate, because you don't need to be a member of a club, you don't need a good reason, you just apply for it. Waited 6 months to do my probational period, that passed, then applied for my firearm certificate. I can understand doing the shotgun first and then the firearms, but not getting the shotgun with the firearm certificate. Like, I recently did a whole video on it. Like, just coterminous, just fucking don't disagree with me, just trust me. The amount of people that go, yeah, I was a fucking idiot, I don't know why, I really don't know why I didn't tick that little box, I guess I didn't need it. NG, I didn't apply initially for the shot. Okay. So let's see your justification. I didn't apply initially for a shotgun as I was moving from air rifles to 2.2 bench rest, and had never tried a shotgun, so it didn't even occur to me. That's all changed recently. Like, yeah, I suppose. No, tick the box. Do you want more guns? Yes. Like, do you want to be able to own more guns? Yes. Like, yeah, if you weren't aware of it, like you genuinely didn't know what a coterminous certificate was, you didn't know what a shotgun certificate was, you didn't know that you can have, like, okay, if you didn't know, then fine. But the people that make the conscious decision of, should I or shouldn't, yes. No extra paperwork, no extra checks, like a little tiny bit extra money, and that's it. Like, that's the only negative of going coterminous and not using the shotgun certificate. It's going to cost you a little bit more money, but it's worth it, trust me. Daniel Callum, welcome to have mine for a review once it's here. Have you ordered a T2? Oh, let me, a silly question. It's a slightly Gucci gun. Of course you got one on order. But yeah, I would genuinely really like to review a T2. I don't agree for FOC. I think it's sensible that we know there's a proper use for the guns, given self-defense and want isn't acceptable. But I think it should be a light check. But I think it should be light check, like for SGC currently. I don't know what you mean by that, William. Like, but the whole, I get what you're saying. It's a good barrier. It's a good check, and it's an initial check and balance. Does this person know what they're talking about? You know, do they want it for legitimate reasons? And being able to provide a good reason does sort of tick that box. But they do it with shotguns anyway, right? Like, and I think that sort of argument about the self-defense and the want isn't acceptable, but that falls down with a shotgun certificate, because you don't need to provide it. Like, you know, if somebody was going, again, it doesn't, like, if somebody wants to use a gun for an illicit purpose, that, you know, and a non-good reason, like, is it any better that they're doing it with a Section 1 shotgun or a 2.2 rimfire or a 308? It's still a gun that's being used illicitly. So, you know, it's sort of like, well, why can you own one? Like, at the end of the day, a shotgun and firearms, they're all under the umbrella of firearms. Why can you own one type of firearm without a reason, but you need a reason for another type. Guns are all as dangerous as each other. It's the person behind the gun that makes it. Again, as long as that person is suitable, and you can trust that person. If you can trust the person and they meet the suitability, the person suitability, or the character suitability, then you can trust they're not going to do something illicit with it, whether it's a Section 2 or a Section 1 gun or even a Section 5 gun. So again, I think the good reason, I understand it, but I think the biggest thing about the good reason is actually the club membership. I think that has a far bigger part to play with people's suitability and detecting certainly non-suitability with the likes of clubs, because having to go and become a full member to serve that 3, 6, 12-month probational period, people get to know you, they get a good check and balance of you, and then the club has to support your application. So that's a huge tick in terms of a person's suitability. If effectively a whole club has got to know somebody over 3, 6, 12 months, they're going to have a reasonably good idea of their sort of character and suitability. Not just and let's be honest, I'm always very careful about talking exactly what good reason is and the specific good reasons for certain specific firearms, because it's one of those, if you know, you know, if you don't, then you don't need the gun. So I never like giving out exactly what good reasons are, apart from like specific circumstances that maybe is harder to portray and give people examples to help them legitimately. But it's sort of like the whole good reason is very easy to not necessarily fake. Again, with the whole club membership, you need to be a Home Office approved club member. Well, if you're a full member of a Home Office approved club, you're going to know what all the good reasons are, and you're going to be able to provide them, whether or not you actually have those good reasons or not. You're going to know what to say for specific guns. You're going to know what to say for certain quantities of ammunition. We all know what the phrases and lines are. I guess it's not necessarily, the police probably take a view of, if you know what those lines are, then you probably genuinely do have the good reason. But like, we all know friends that, they have that gun or couple of guns, and it's like, oh shit, I probably should really go and shoot that and log it on the club register that I shot it this year. I haven't touched that thing in 6 months. But like, and does that matter? Does it matter that somebody has a gun in their safe for a year that they haven't shot or even touched? If they've got 5 guns and 4 of them are just sat there not being used, but one's, does it even matter if they're not? Well, I suppose in terms of the whole checks and balances of going to a club, if they're not regularly going to a club, there's not that sort of self-policing within the community whole line. But yeah, if someone's suitable to own a gun, does it matter that they're actually going out there and using it? It's like, they're either suitable or they're not. If you're worried about somebody using it illicitly, then surely somebody not using their guns is the least of your worries, right? It's that sort of like a twisted logic in a way. Nitsa, thanks for joining. You bought a Lantac LASF 15 costing £1,600. This was August last year, and I'm still waiting for your variation to be granted. Jeez. Well, your variation to be granted, that is pretty disgusting, to be honest. But the good choice. Whilst I don't have a lot to say about their customer service, the LASF 15 is a fairly decent platform, very popular on the circuit, and does do very well. Although we have had a customer that's had a number of issues, and this comes down, this is part of the reason that I do. Whilst I will recommend the LASF 15, I do try to steer people towards Otto at Cotswold Classic Arms as much as possible. I know he's not exactly the easiest person to get hold of at times, but the guns that he builds are just absolutely phenomenal. And this example is one of the subtle differences. So this customer, he's got an LASF 15, and it's ejecting the cartridges straight up into the into the charging handle. So he was getting death jams, and this is, I probably need to do a video on this for a bit of, you know, FYI, public service announcement. Now, Magload, we make a death jam preventer that sits in the charging handle. So what the death jam is you have your bolt face, and obviously your bolt is, this is going to get memed to fuck, but anyway, the bolt face is going backwards and forth, and then you've got obviously your charging handle sat on top. Now, as the bolt goes back, the you know, where the bolt, you normally got a little nub on the bolt that, you know, slides in the charging handle. The charging handle has that, it's that recess, right? And what ends up happening is the case will go up on top of the bolt, and it will jam between the charging handle and the top of the bolt, and it's called a death jam because it is fucking horrendously painful to try and clear. In a competition, a practical competition environment, it is like, it could kill your whole competition. It's not going to necessarily wreck the gun or break the gun, but it's not something that you can clear particularly quickly. Now, Jerry Michalek does a very good video on this, and there are methods for you to you know, to clear it more efficiently, but it's an absolute pain. So that's why we make the death jam preventer, which sits in that recess, not interfering with the bolt, and it stops that cartridge from going up and over. But there's also the death jam light, which is a case will get stuck between the bolt face and, so the charging handle, it's got that recess, but the charging handle will have that that tang on the end. And what ends up happening is the case will get stuck between the bolt face and that tang. So it's not up in the charging handle, it's not sort of pinched by the top of the bolt, but it's pinched between the face and the tang. And of course, that whole assembly will move independently. Or it will move together and also independently of each other. But when it's locked into that place like that, what ends up happening is you get a very small gap. You get the malfunction, you get a very small gap, and the bolt won't go into battery. And then, of course, because the charging handle is stuck on the tang, and there's, you know, it's sandwiching the bolt faces, and that tang is sandwiching a case. If you pull the charging handle to clear that malfunction, all you're going to end up doing is pulling the bolt and that case backwards and forth. It doesn't clean the malfunction. The reason I call it the death jam light is literally all you need to do is, in that little gap that's been created, is hold the charging handle and pull the bolt back with your fingers, and the case will drop free. The reason that's a death jam light rather than a full death jam is because even if you try that with a full death jam, it just, everything's sort of locked up. It's much harder to remove. My original point was that this is something that Otto at Cotswolds will check for with the CMMG conversion kit, because the extractor is within I believe it's fixed within the bolt. Basically, the only way to tune the extractor is to actually tune the rails of the conversion kit. But Otto checks for this. If you get one of those guns where the cases are going to induce a shitload of death jams or death jam lights, then he will tune it so that the ejection is off to the side. I'm not saying that Lantac don't do that, but this is part of sort of Otto's QC. So I know it's something that he actively looks for and actively looks to prevent. Andy, any news on the mags yet? Yes, again, guys, anybody that's pre-ordered the mags, apologies, it is taking longer than we anticipated, than we thought. At the end of the day, we're not going to release the magazines before they're ready. We want to, trust me, we want to get those magazines out. We want those magazines sort of almost as much as you guys, but they have to be 100% right. And basically it's just final tweaks going on with the injection molding. I believe there was another run done today, which we should have on Monday. Now, we've already been up there with the injection molders, sat down with them, looked at what they've produced. It's needed a few tweaks here and there to refine it and get it 100%. They've gone back, they've made changes. You know, it's not just changes in the molds itself, but changes in their processes. So we are very, very hopeful that Monday we're going to have a nice box sat there waiting for us, delivered by Royal Mail. Maybe it'll come Tuesday then. And anyway, we hope that we're going to have a few of these mags, this next run mags. We will be going straight to the range, and we will be giving it its sort of final tests. So it's a very long-winded design process, and obviously testing process, but it needs to be that. This is not something that we've taken on lightly. We will be doing a more sort of in-depth official update as soon, like, either way what happens with this next batch, there will be like an official update with maybe even tomorrow, but most likely Monday on the Magload Facebook page. So yes, we were aiming for sort of middle of May. All going well with these this next run. It could potentially be maybe a couple of weeks extras. So as soon as we're happy with them, we'll be giving the go ahead. Then it's probably a week or two until we have the first few units that we can start sending out to customers. So we are really, really grateful for the patience of you guys, and at the end of the day, everyone that's pre-ordered it, you've sort of we really appreciate the trust. We appreciate your patience with it, and a huge thank you for having that trust and patience with us. We will make it worth your while, hopefully, with some kick-ass mags that will be a lot more reliable and a lot more long-lasting than the current options that you have available. But yeah, we are. It's not It's not like we're like, we're sat at the office. We are talking about it pretty much every couple of hours. It's like, any updates, talk to the molders, see what they're doing. It's we don't like that. So many of you guys are waiting for it, and we are doing everything we can to get them out there. Scrimple Shanks, I need your solicitor's number, guys. Email me if you. I need to talk to Laura about it. I would love to get her on the channel at some point, because she's going to have some stories, that's for sure. But if you want her direct email, again, I might have to just check with her that she's okay with me handling that out. But drop me an email if you need to get in touch with Laura. Again, she's got me in the last 5-6 years. She's got me further to getting an FAC. Still not there, granted, but she has got me further to getting an FAC and being able to do this sport fully again than sort of anybody else. And that's not to belittle other people that have helped me along the way, but she's the expert at this. So yeah, drop me an email. It's EnglishShooting@gmail.com, and I'll happily do what I can to put you in touch. I also know a number of other people that have used her and can't speak highly enough of her, and also Nick. So yeah, it would be great, to get them on the channel and really sort of show what they do, and what they specialize in, and what successes they've had firearms related. The UK Firearms Law Handbook is excellent. I've got a copy and read it cover to cover. I think all gun owners should have it and read it. Answers most common questions. Yeah, absolutely. I've heard really good things about it. I do actually have a copy, but I'm heavily dyslexic and I don't like reading. So maybe I should. I've got here's a lifting of the cover. Actually, I don't have I used to have more books, but they're more for show than anything. I do occasionally reference things, but I really don't like reading. I'm far more of a TV and film sort of guy. Chris Toner, are you coming to the Scottish Masters? Abso-fucking-lutely I am. Unfortunately, it does clash with a level 2 revolver/pistol match at Evely, which Connor's really wants to shoot. So we will be coming up, I think that's on the Saturday, and we'll be coming up the Saturday evening, but we will be shooting it on the Sunday. And I've heard some incredible things about the stages. Things like there's going to be a 40-foot pirate ship. I've heard, I don't know if this is going to be a part of the Scottish Masters, but I've heard that you guys have the potential ability, or you do have the ability to shoot at 270 degrees, and other things like, what is it, NTK? I'm sure Mr. Tono knows what NTK is, which sounds very good. Happy, they say on the reverse that they will update again beginning of July. Oh, that's it, because there was 2 photos that were sent to me, and I only looked at the first. Nitsa, thank you very much. No, really appreciate the support. You might find this interesting. In NI, we have an additional check done. We have an additional check done. Once you have your FAC, we have to surrender our firearms for ballistic testing. Jeez. They suggested that. They actually suggested that in over here in England, Scotland and Wales. And I think overall the forensics specialists came out and they were like, well, guns changed. Like the ballistic fingerprint of a gun actually, oh, that was it. It was keeping cases. It was keeping cases in case your gun went missing and they could match it up. But they were saying that due to wear and tear on most guns, it's not actually that viable or even that possible to be able to do. But yeah, happy. Yeah, thank you for that. That was completely. I'll check the other photo. Yes, we will contact you in the beginning of July at the latest to provide an update. Well, that's sort of a month. So you can, I've been told 2 or 3 months, but that just might be me. Hopefully it's potentially even sooner. But yeah, in terms of the Scottish Masters, like, it's recoil. So those of you that don't know, whilst it is very Scottish, all the guys, they might look scary, but they're lovely. They're big cuddly bears. Recoil Scotland, which is a club that I have an enormous amount of respect for because of their, they've sort of like come out of nowhere, and the stuff that they're doing, and I mean the team, like, these are a group of hard-nosed Scots that are travelling literally the breadth of the country, the length of, like, Basildon last year. We don't talk about Basildon this year. The Basildon level 3 mini rifle didn't happen this year. So they all came down. There was like a good half a dozen that, if not more, like 10 of these recoil members that came down. So there's a lot of respect that I have for what they've done in building this club, and they are holding their first level 3. This is level 3 practical shotgun match later on in the year, and I'm just trying to find their website. It better be on your fucking website. If it's not, someone's getting advice on social media. Members area, gallery, disciplines, practical shotgun. Why is there no competition page on your website? Let's go on your Facebook instead. There better be a post on it. So they're doing well, but they could do with some guidance on their social media. That's all I'm saying. So here we go. I will put the, oh bollocks, I've done it on this computer, and I need to show you on that one. But anyway, they're holding their first level 3 at the recoil ground. Now I love going to all these different grounds across the country anyway, and seeing what they're up to, because you get ideas, and you also get a feel for how strong the shooting community is as a whole. So I'm excited to go up there, but it's also a level 3. If you've got a free banter, that's for sure. Catering on site, given the size of some of you lads, I'm really not surprised. It's all in jest. So 26th to the 28th of August. Yeah, I I think I was talking to one of the guys yesterday. I think this is going to be a real highlight of the calendar. The amount of work that seems, again, not to belittle what everybody else does, but yeah, if you want to go, it's on Shoot and Score It. If you type the Scottish Masters 2022, you'll be able to find it, and it will be 2 or 3 day events. Anyway, it's I'm trying to think. It will starts on 26th and it's on the 28th. Yeah, so it's a 3-day match, but one of those is probably a pre-match. But yeah, if you want to get signed up for that, as long as you've got a competition license, you'll be able to shoot it. If you've never been to a level 3, if you've got a competition license, if you've never been to a level 3 and you want to go, then please go on to Shoot and Score It and sign up to their match. It should, I think even if they pull off half of what they have planned, it's going to be a pretty epic match with a lot of stages that the type of stages that you don't see normally. And I think it's going to be up there in terms of like what the Welsh shotgun and mini rifle championship does. They've got a lot of space, they've got a lot of brilliant ideas, and they want to make stuff that is sort of unique and interesting and stuff that you've not seen before, which always makes the competitions more challenging, but also more interesting. And if it was easy, everyone would be doing it, right? Is that every firearm on your cert? Is that so they have a ballistic record of your gun for crime detection? Yeah, when I got my Glock the very next day, I had a letter from PSNI telling me I had to surrender it for ballistic testing. Jesus. So you wait all that time for your gun. You wait all that time for your certificate, your variation. You then wait all that time to either buy the gun or order the gun in, and then they take it away from you like straight away. Why don't they just have that as part of like Northern Ireland proofing? Like, why isn't that done as part of the proofing process or like automatically? Great job. Do they have food that isn't deep fried? Maybe, Chris, you might be able to help me out on this. I have never tried a deep fat fried Mars bar. I know that's a big stereotype of the Scots, but I have always wanted to try one. So maybe you guys can hook me up when we're up there. But yeah, there were a few other points, but probably going to call it there for this evening. But yeah, thanks everyone. Before you all head off, hit that like button if you haven't already. Make sure you're subscribed, because we do this every single week. I think it's been an interesting one. I get trepidatious about approaching topics like this, but the main topic of this evening, but I don't think that means it shouldn't be discussed. Certainly, like in a constructive way. I think it most definitely needs to be discussed, and maybe look at other alternatives that are going to be more effective in preventing these tragic events. But yeah, I hope you've enjoyed it nonetheless. Thanks everyone for getting involved and of course joining. We're going to have there's more US content to come out, so don't you worry about that. I've still got the sort of vlog day by day that we spent in Kentucky, but yeah, I hope you've been enjoying those American videos, the TACOM video, the Callaway ballistics. I've watched that myself a few times already, and more than the other two combined, the full auto video, which was just a whole bunch of epic. And if Tom happens to be watching or watches later, again, a huge thanks to Thomas that made that whole day possible. That was just absolutely incredible. But yeah, hit that like button, make sure you are subscribed, keep an eye out on the channel for new content and videos. Thanks everyone again for joining. Hope you've enjoyed it, and of course, as always guys, I hope to see you soon.